Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Tonight is going to be a very special evening, and I know what you're all waiting for. And the reason this is going to be a very special evening is that we've been able to invite the two leading heads from nChain. And nChain is the leading research and development company in the blockchain business. Now, this event is unique because we've also asked two of our favorite professors to come and join us and discuss questions which are interesting to academia, but which are also interesting to you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Welcome, everybody, to Exeter University if you've travelled from far away. I saw some people on the list have come from Cardiff, Bristol. Craig himself has driven here from London. It's a huge privilege and honour to have Craig and Jimmy here this evening. And we really look forward to the presentations and the debate that's going to happen after that. So for me, the Bitcoin story goes right back to when it all first started. I've been a lecturer here at the university for quite a long time now. I was teaching macroeconomics, and the topic of money always comes up. What is money? The history of money. For me, Bitcoin was just a small, curious thing that was developing, and it's been incredible to watch how it's unfolded. It's been an incredible success up to now, but that's the sort of thing that we're going to be discussing later. So I want to really make sure this happens so we don't run out of time. I want to say thank you to Lisa Harris in our digital learning team at the university in the business school. Thank you to her for helping us prepare for this event. Margaret House-Hughes, Jill Hedge have also been helping us a lot, and David Bowie provided the money to fund it, so thank you to him as well. We've got volunteer students who are helping this evening. Here's the list of names from the Economics Society. Matti Foldi, Abi Sinha, Bella Record, Renato Eged, David Molnar, Nick Pritchard, Ben Moffat, and Arco Day. Thank you so much, guys, to help make sure things run smoothly. So, we did a survey.
We've all asked you to tell us how much you know about blockchain and Bitcoin. These are the results, and this is good because that means we actually serve a purpose of giving an introduction here. And there are also some experts here, so people who are crypto fanatics might be looking in the break for those experts in order to get into the arena. So, to be honest with ourselves, the question, can you explain this to your grandmother or a loved one or a small child? To be honest, we're not sure whether we ourselves will be able to do that at this stage. So the aim of today is not to be able to answer all the questions. The aim of today is to be able to ask questions you might not have looked at before. And the beautiful thing about today is we have the two people who can answer all the questions you have today.
So when me and Sebastian were talking about how to introduce this session, one of the things we wanted to do was, from our perspective, just share our thoughts on exactly that. How do you explain Bitcoin, even if you're an expert, to people that don't really know anything about it? It's actually quite a challenge. And I'm sure people might disagree with this, but the first starting point for me is to tell people that Bitcoin isn't really a coin. Obviously that helps you understand that it's a form of money, it's a new form of money. That's true. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and she was asking me, are there physical Bitcoins? Can I go and get these things? So obviously there's this kind of mental barrier in terms of accepting that it's digital money, first of all. But the more subtle thing, of course, is the mining itself, which is the process of making sure that the public ledger, and that ultimately is what Bitcoin is, it's a safe, secure, completely verified and unbreakable public ledger that the miners actually ensure agrees over time. So yes, it's a bit like gold mining, but in some sense it's not a very helpful analogy. So I want to walk through an example of three people carrying out economic activity and carrying out some transactions, just as a way of starting this process of explaining to somebody who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, what the hell is it? So you're using pound sterling here. We've got Mike, he's a painter, he's doing some work for Kate. Fran does 3 hours of babysitting for Mike, and Kate's selling wedding photos. So normally, people might, if it's the informal economy, they might just exchange physical cash. If it's more formal, we might actually use our banks, use debit cards, whatever. There'll be a process of transferring money to each other. So if we look at their account balance at the start, right, what happens after transaction number 1? Well, Kate pays Mike £100. That's transaction 1. We're updating a ledger here, guys. So we're adding £100 to Mike's account, and we're taking away £100 from Kate's account. With me so far? Second transaction, £50 transfers, this time from Mike to Fran. Right? She's done some work for him. Third transaction, £30 transfers to Kate. And again, we have to update the ledger. So banks, central banks, normally carry out this process. Bitcoin is a way of doing all of this without using banks and central banks. So money is a process of updating a ledger. In the case of Bitcoin, it's a public ledger. So I'm going to explain what that means. We could have done all of what we just did just now, not using pound sterling, but using Bitcoins or Bitcoin Cash. In this case, I just put an exchange rate here of 1,000 Bitcoins to £1, just to show you that it's the same process. So we would just be updating our ledgers in exactly the same way. Okay? Now, an important part of how Bitcoin works is that everybody has the same ledger that has every single transaction available to everybody, and they can all keep a record of it. And it's shared, it's distributed, right? Normally banks centralize this. They store it, they keep it safe, or maybe they don't keep it safe, but they try and keep it safe. Bitcoin is completely transparent in the sense of the ledger being public. And the ledger is updating over time. In this case, for that first transaction, we've got the same process unfolding. So after transaction 1, that's what's happened. Now, everybody has the same ledger, and a question starts to arise. What if there's some nasty people out there? And what if we're doing trade with millions, billions of people around the world? What if Mike actually tries to cheat the system? What if everybody recognizes that he has about 0.5 Bitcoins, and he tries to pay Fran and he tries to pay Kate at the same time? He might try and pay them 0.5 at the same time, and if they'd written down their ledger on paper, and if they hadn't had time to update it in between one transaction, then he could double spend. He could spend those 0.5 units simultaneously, and he would be cheating, and the whole system would break down. The innovation that Satoshi Nakamoto introduced in his white paper was fundamentally to solve the double spending problem that I've just explained, in addition to other problems simultaneously, and that's really the genius of the whole thing. So, before I hand back to Sebastian, another practical aspect to how Bitcoin works, if you're trying to explain it to your proverbial grandmother, is to say that there's something called a public key, and you own a private key, but the public key is really just like your bank account number, right? Here in the UK, we're used to having a sort code and an account number. It's the way that you as an individual are being identified, right? So when people set up a wallet for you using any of the cryptocurrencies, it creates a tag which identifies who you are. So again, this is nice. This is working the same way that people are used to working in normal setting.
Okay, so let's get a sense of how Bitcoin works and why does it work anyway? And what is the mechanism? What does blockchain mean, right? So there are two key ingredients. That's the way I look at it. And these have existed before Bitcoin. But none of them got it to work. None of them succeeded because they couldn't get rid of the double spending problem that Jack mentioned. They always ended up with a central authority or a third party that had to be incorruptible. There was always a chance this party could be corrupted. And then Bitcoin came, and all of a sudden it started working. So what are those key ingredients that made the difference and that made Bitcoin what it is today? So one aspect of it is the mechanism of digital signatures. It's very simple. It's basically a private key and a public key. And with the private key and a predefined hash function, you generate a value that is associated with the public key, and this public key only. It means that when I'm signing a transaction, or any message for that matter, anybody's able to verify whether I'm indeed the owner of that public key by matching it with the generated value of the hashing function. You can think of this as a door lock, but with two keys. And one key can only open it, and the other one can only close it. So when the owner opens the door, and you're able to close it again, you know you got the right man. So when I'm sending electronic coins, I'm really just sending information that belongs to me, that I'm holding this amount of coins. So for any transaction, I'm verifying that the coins actually belong to me, and I'm passing on the ownership of those coins by adding my signature to the public address of the receiver. All this information is stored in a hash and kept in a block and added onto the blockchain. It's a database. It's that simple. Who keeps the database secure? Well, that's where the miners come in. So this is where, to me, the key innovation occurred. So let me try to explain this with an analogy. Imagine you're a group of people, and you all have your own news outlet. Now, you're a business. You want to make money. And the sooner you broadcast your news, the more money you make, right? Because if you're the first one who tells a story, and you're incentivized enough to bring it out there immediately, people can say you must be the first witness. And so your version of the story must be correct. So they give you credit for your story. A similar thing happens in mining. And the story you're telling as a miner is the story of how you solved a mathematical puzzle. And the puzzle was so difficult to solve, and in fact, you're so proud of it. You want to show everyone in the network what you did. But you ain't doing this for fun, remember? You want to get paid, and there are two sources of income to you. The transaction fee that anyone is paying when he makes a transaction, and although it's voluntary, you can adjust that transaction fee. The miner would probably not accept the transaction fee where he knows he's going to bankrupt himself. So you probably set a reasonable, high enough, just below a penny of transaction fee that gives the miner an incentive to mine you. And the second reward is the creation of new bits of coins, at least for a while. Now, and if this looks confusing to you, I need my notes too, so you can tell this is not an easy process to explain to anyone. But the key is that the network has to find a system of consensus. This is called proof of work. And this is the key to the system. This is the innovation. Now, see, you can't just make up a story and to be able to verify the next block of transaction. First, you need to show the network that the signatures used are valid, so you can't just send money around. Second, remember the story of the mathematical puzzle. You want to show, so this is your proof of work. This is the consensus mechanism in the network. Without it, the participants in the network are not going to let you have that reward. So when you try and validate a transaction or an amount of transactions in the next block, and you don't fulfill those conditions, then other miners are going to what they call orphan your block. So you're the only one adding blocks to a chain that is no longer accepted. So your reward won't be worth anything either. So what do? You stick to the rules of the game. Now, the puzzle you're trying to solve is no easy thing. And it becomes a competitive system. and the most powerful computers in the world are able to be in that race for the next block. Any computer that is powerful can do that. It is brutal free market capitalism at its best. I mean, talk about security. So you end up having something like that. Now, this is a near complete graph for a small world, and forget the little ones here. But these are the nodes, right? So what happens when one of those nodes are gone? The network doesn't care because they're enough, right? And they're so interconnected. In fact, it doesn't take long for them. If this one discovers a transaction, it's broadcast to the whole network, right? And this happens within milliseconds. So if you try to double spend, you got the timestamp server that says, well, it's already here. What you doing? It's not the valid transaction. It's the first one who got in. It spread so quickly, it's interconnected so much. It's there within milliseconds. And I mean, the amount of hops Craig told me today it takes for a network to go to all the other nodes is about 1.4 or something, right? 1.3. So the internet is nothing like it. The internet is highly centralized. Some of you may be thinking, what, don't you need the internet to connect to the network? The answer is no. You need a communication platform that can send signals and information to the network, to the blockchain. So you can send coins via SMS today. There's coin text for that, and there are other exciting things coming up. So, you know, what does this mean for us, for an economy? What are the broader implications? Well, first of all, it's an irreversible system, right? Bitcoin has solved the double spending problem. There are no reverse payments. There is no central authority that could be corrupted. And, I mean, you can sense this when you buy a flight ticket and you have the chance to, the option of paying per direct transfer or per credit card. And per credit card is always more expensive, right? It pisses you off. Now, the reason for that is you can reverse payments. There's a 20 days window or something where you can actually, where the company you're paying is not entirely sure whether that payment is going to arrive or not. This is a time factor and a cost factor in economics for any business. So Bitcoin has just gotten rid of that. And this is very important. Coins won't be mined until infinity. It's built into the consensus mechanism. It gets more and more difficult to mine coins. So essentially, there is a limited supply of coins, and that is actually known. So, you know, think about that. You can't just lower interest rates as a central bank and lend money that you don't have. So, you know, we could effectively prevent crashes to a good extent. It's all transparent. And the question really is, you know, well, we're not going to have a bubble. Okay, it's pretty cool, but it's a long-term perspective, is it? Well, not just. I mean, this is what I looked at in my dissertation, and I looked at blockchain applications in underdeveloped countries. And there are people in rural Kenya, in Western Kenya, that are not able to get a bank account because they need to have over $200 to be able to open one, and it costs them $6 to withdraw. So if they get access to even a feature phone, and a lot of people in Kenya are using M-Pesa, so they do have that. They're able to open a mobile wallet practically for free, and there's no one on earth that needs to give them permission in order to transact with anyone around the planet. Isn't that cool? So we will have a 20 minutes break, or let's say 25 minutes. We'll all meet back here at 6:20 to welcome our experts, Jimmy and Craig, everyone. Thank you.